In this video, we're going to look at Chapter 19 of the Texas Penal Code, Criminal Homicide. They're listed right here. We technically have 5 types of homicide in Texas, but there's only 4 in Chapter 19. In the intoxication chapter, which I believe is Chapter 49, there's an offense called intoxication manslaughter, which is essentially causing the death of someone by nature of your intoxication while operating a vehicle. So that because of the focus on intoxication, it's not included in Chapter 19. But in this chapter, we're going to talk about the 4 and just kind of quickly define and differentiate between them. So we have 19.02 murder, 19.03 capital murder, 19.04 manslaughter, and 19.05 criminally negligent homicide. So what essentially we're paying attention to in these offenses to differentiate between murder, manslaughter, and criminally negligent homicide is the mens rea element. The mental state of the offender is different. The result is the same. The action can be the same, but the mental state causes these offenses to vary in seriousness. So capital murder is generally considered to be the more serious version, but we start with murder because it provides the underlying definition needed in understanding capital murder. So you can see in the capital murder statute, 19.03a says a person commits an offense if he commits murder as defined in section 19.02b1. So we have to go up to b1 and start with murder. There's a couple definitions here. I'm not going to talk about that in this video. We're just going to look at these 3 definitions of murder. So B1 is a person commits an offense of murder if he intentionally or knowingly causes the death of the individual or an individual. Number 2 is if you intend to cause serious bodily injury and commit an act clearly dangerous to human life that in fact produces or causes the death of an individual. So this prevents, the thing like, well, I didn't intend to kill him. I was just trying to scare him, or I just wanted to hurt him. If you try to shoot somebody in the leg and it accidentally kills them, you've committed an act clearly dangerous to human life that caused the death of an individual. So instead of being charged with a lesser version of homicide or an aggravated assault, you're still on the hook for murder, which, except for these definitional differences spelled out in D, is a first-degree felony. And then 19.02b3 is sometimes referred to as felony murder. This is, I'm not going to read all of it, but essentially, other than manslaughter, in the attempt or commission of a felony with an act clearly dangerous to human life, you cause the death of an individual, then it's, instead of being something lower like manslaughter, it is just regular murder. So felony murder typically applies to what's considered unintended death during the commission of a felony. Whereas opposed to capital murder, if you commit an intended death, then it would be capital murder during the commission of a felony. And that's laid out here in A2. Person intentionally commits murder in the course of committing or attempting to commit kidnapping, burglary, robbery, aggravated assault. So not every felony, but these specific felonies. So all capital murder is, and then we're not going to really consider it separate, is first-degree murder, intentionally or knowingly causing the death of an individual with the presence of some attendant circumstance being present. You murder more than one person in the same course of conduct or the same scheme. You murder someone under the age of 10. You murder somebody during the commission of one of these felonies. You murder a peace officer or a fireman who's in a lawful discharge of their duty, and you know that person is a fireman or a police officer. That just elevates or aggravates the offense to capital murder. There's one interesting thing that we've added within the last couple of years. 2019 probably is the last date that this shows to be amended, is 19.02 A9, the person murders an individual who's older than 10 but under the age of 15. And you can see that the previous statement is murdering someone under the age of 10. And the reason they didn't just change this to 15 is because this singular statement is considered capital murder, but it is not a death penalty qualifying offense. So if you are charged with a 9, then you are eligible for the punishment of life in prison without the possibility of parole, but not the death penalty. Everything else would be subject to capital punishment. All right, so skip over capital murder. We've looked at murder. The main 19.02b1 intentionally or knowingly causes the death of the individual. So let's compare that to manslaughter. Manslaughter is a simple statement. A person commits an offense if he recklessly causes the death of an individual. And we remember talking about mens rea, the mental state. Recklessly is a state of mind that exists when an actor is aware of the danger that his or her behavior presents, chooses to ignore that danger, and continues with the risky action, and that leads to some unintended consequence that we would, kind of define as foresight. You could have seen that coming, and you were aware of the danger. So this is a second-degree felony. So manslaughter and murder in Texas are relatively simple. We do not differentiate like other states do between first and second-degree murder, voluntary and involuntary manslaughter. We have these different terms for those lower-level types of death. So we'll look at this, then I'll give you an example. Criminally negligent homicide is the lowest or least serious form of homicide that we have. It's a state jail felony. A person commits an offense if he causes the death of an individual by criminal negligence. And again, going back to mens rea, criminal negligence exists. Typically, we would look at the definition being something along the lines of the actor should have been aware that his action or her action produces an unjustifiable risk or unjustifiable harm, and that that unjustifiable risk is a gross deviation from the standard of care that an ordinary citizen would provide. So if you or I were in the situation, we would have been aware of the danger that we were at least to some degree would have been aware that the action that we have is likely to produce a result or possibly could produce a result. But for some reason, the actor is not aware. So it's not like recklessness where they are aware and are ignoring it. It's that they're not aware, but they definitely should have been aware. Let's use the example for just to kind of solidify these ideas. So again, with our homicide chapters, the result's the same. The harm is in every one of these. It says causes the death of an individual. And we're going to use one type of crime and kind of just tweak the actor's state of mind. So the action can always be the same. So let's talk about things that happen in Texas on a regular basis in the summer. As the temperature goes up, there are going to be reports and cases involving children who die after being left in the car on these hot summer days and the temperature gets too high. So let's look at what that would look like if we wanted to charge someone with murder for that. A person commits an offense if he intentionally or knowingly causes the death of an individual. So one thing, we have seen a case. There was a case in Georgia not too long ago. I can't think of a Texas case, and I didn't look this up, but there was a case that I think it was in Georgia where they proved that the dad left his kid in the car on purpose. And they were able to do that by using some search engine results on his home computer that, questions in Google about how long does it take somebody to die in a hot car or whatever it may be. So he kind of showing this he thought about it ahead of time, and then lo and behold, his kid is left in a hot car. So that's what the intentional version of that would be like. You put the kid in the car seat, you leave him in the car with the intention that the heat is going to cause his death. That's what murder would look like. For it to be capital murder, most of the cases would be that way. Most of the children that are left in hot cars and die are under the age of 10. They are restrained and do not have the ability to relieve themselves from the car. open the car door, remove their restraints. So that typically is going to be a capital murder if it is in fact an intentional death. For it to be reckless, something that we would be aware of, but not something that we intended. You would make a conscious choice. I'm going to run in this store real quick. I'm going to leave the kid in the car seat. It's too much of a hassle to get him out of the car seat. I'll be in and out. And then it's just, so hot that it doesn't take as long as you thought it might. So something that you were aware of the danger. You know it's hot. You know that people die in their cars. You chose to ignore that by going into the store anyway. So that may be, you didn't intend it, but it's reckless at the very least. So that may be what we look at in a manslaughter case. And then criminally negligent homicide, I think this is something that happens quite a bit. The circumstance in which the parent didn't intentionally leave their kid in the car. They didn't intend them for a death. Kind of a stereotyped example of this might look like the change in routine. So instead of dad picking up the kid from school every day, today it was mom's turn. Dad had a meeting, mom had to pick up the kid, and she drives home and parks in the garage. And then as her routine is, she gets out of the car, she, puts her bags away, she starts getting stuff ready for dinner. And just kind of in that connection from getting home to her routine, she forgot about the kid in the back of the car. Maybe the kid fell asleep on the way home, wasn't making a lot of noise. So that's something that we would look at, a gross deviation from the standard of care of an ordinary person, an ordinary citizen's not forgetting that their kid's in the back of the car. So this is something that's probably, in this example, less than reckless. Still culpable. We call that criminal negligence. So you should have been aware. Like, you should have known your kid was in the car, right? And that's something that we're going to see every summer. Some version of these homicides is going to happen where a kid's left in a car. Sometimes it might be murder. Sometimes it might be manslaughter. Sometimes it might be criminally negligent homicide. So those are the examples. The key words when you're defining these homicide statutes are the mens rea or mental state. It's criminally negligent, it's reckless, or it's intentionally and knowingly.